I'm very curious as to what Joe Black's going to do here. And he bets over pot here. So what I like about the bet size is that he recognizes that the 7 is not a huge part of Zebeno's range. This hand starts off in a very strange manner. So Diener min raises, which is a little bit unorthodox nowadays, but nothing wrong with it. But where the hand gets weird is there's 3 overcallers, right? I mean, this doesn't happen very often.
No.
Are these games very 3-bet happy nowadays? I assume they are, right?
Yes, and I think Diener 0-3 is a recreational, so that's and then the other guys I don't really know, which is kind of, that's like the first thing, right? Like when you play a game like pretty much every day and then you see people that you don't know. I mean, they might be regulars and just join the pool, but I mean, it's more often than not potentially some recreational players. So I don't really know any of these guys, to be honest, except for Vincent Fish, and then Diener I think is a recreational. But there's not much cold calling going on these days. It's mostly like going to be 3-bet, and then or it's going to be a single raise spot versus the big blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also what I always experience at 500 Zoom. Cold calling is not heavily incentivized because the rake is not that low. Also, 3-betting and isolating your opponent in position is generally a very good play. So, I mean, cutoff button and small blind cold call, and then the big blind actually has a great squeeze spot because he basically knows. I mean, Diener can have all of the good hands, but all other players, maybe me so lowly, overcalls hand like ace king sometimes or 10s or jacks, but he knows that ding dang donk and EBE never have a really good hand, right? They usually have a hand like 4s or ace 5 suited or 8-7 suited, something like that. Like a hand which is not terrible, but a hand that's going to struggle in a huge pot.
Yeah, I totally agree. Also, like I'm not sure if like we should be really aggressive. The thing is that if me Solali decide to call here, like they're all pretty deep. So I mean, ding dang dong's not gonna go anywhere because it's mostly gonna have like pocket pairs, that type of stuff, and then we like bloat the big pot. I mean, I kind of like the big sizing, so that's like he might get folds, but I think that like if Misolali actually calls, this might get like 3-way, and then you're out of position, and then you're deep. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to charge him, right? If you want him to play in position, you want to charge him.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what happens. So as you predicted, Ding Dang Dong will call just because he's over 300 big blinds deep with the big blind. And then we get a very interesting flop, 9-8-3. So the big blind may be squeezing hands like 9s and 8s here, right? Because I mean, he feels like he doesn't want to play these hands multi-way, and his hand is just doing pretty well against their, weaker ranges. I don't think he's ever squeezing 3s, but, the issue is that Ding Dang Dong can easily have 8s or 9s himself, right? He can maybe have, like, 10s, but, like, jacks plus, not so much.
No, he has all the sets there for sure. Like, he has all the combos of sets. This is why, like, now being so deep, it kind of gets tricky, right? Because, I mean, if heads up beat has kings and aces, I mean, he can't just go like bet shove or like bet big on all 3 streets. So, so I mean, at least he's heads up, which is a bit better, right? Because I mean, you just have to think about one range. But I mean, Ding Dang Dong can still have some strong hands here for sure.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, once you bet 3 times with aces, right? I mean, he doesn't have overpairs to call with the button, so and he'll often end up folding hands like 10-9 suited to 2-bet. So you're kind of isolating yourself against hands like 3s, 8s, and 9s once you put in a ton of money. But heads up beat doesn't care. He's confident that his overpair is the best hand if he actually has one.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he can still potentially have like 8s and 9s for sure as well. Like this is something that, especially like they're a bit deeper, so like there's added value in like binking a set here for sure.
Well, let's see if he does big a set. So big bet and a call. So I don't think Ding Dang Dong is gonna raise a lot here. If he's got a set, the board is so dry that he doesn't really need to raise and protect. It's also very difficult to set up a bluffing range, right? Just take a hand like 6-7 or queen 10 or ace 5 and start raising here, or like ace 3. So that's quite difficult to pull off. So I don't think we need to raise very often on this board. So he calls. And this is a very interesting card.
What about, like, what do you think about his sizing on the flop? I mean, I would definitely, like, it's a board that I would definitely size up a bit, but he goes something like what, 2/3 pot on the flop.
Yeah, it's quite a big bet, because as I said, if you bet really big, you kind of allow him to fold some weaker hands, but then you put in more money against his really strong hands. So you gotta be careful. So a good general tip, guys, is that when you're deep out of position, just be a little bit more careful, right? Just building the pot on earlier streets, because I mean, a lot of the time the board runs out poorly. As you see right here, it's already getting quite scary, and then when you're deep, there's just way more potential to lose a big pot. So just be a little bit more. Be a little bit more tricky, a little bit more careful when you're playing deep, because a lot more bad things can happen, right? So, because here on this turn, I mean, we can expect Ding Dang Dong to have a hand like Jack 10 suited sometimes, right? He flatted pre-flop. Let's say he sometimes squeezes his hand, but then I assume that when he faces a squeeze, he virtually always calls. So he can probably have, he can have up to 4 combinations of Jack 10. So yeah, heads up beat, should definitely be careful here. But again, he doesn't give a shit. He just bets big because, he's confident that let's say his pocket kings are best.
Because even like if he bets like pocket kings here, the thing is that, like, when Ding Dang Donk, like his screen name, actually calls the turn, like, he's gonna be pretty strong. Like, he's gonna have, like, if he has like a hand like 9-10, like, he's gonna have like a gut shot or backdoor flush draw that got there as well. So he's gonna have a decent amount of equity once he calls. And I think his range, like, by betting this big as well, like, we just narrow his range like pretty pretty immensely.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's repping his strong range, so let's see what Ding Dang Dong does. Again, he doesn't need to do a lot of raising against such a strong line. Call. Okay, and this card obviously changes everything, right? Because, a jack makes a straight, a flush is definitely possible, so heads up beat should definitely be careful here, right? So, what can heads up beat have for value? He can have some flushes, like, for instance, like ace king of spades, or maybe like ace 5 of spades. Maybe he has some kind of low flush, like 6-7 of spades too. As for a jack, that's kind of difficult, right? Maybe he has a hand like queen jack sometimes, but that's not that likely. So he's mostly gonna have a flush here. I guess he can have a hand like ace jack suited, or king jack suited.
Yeah, king jack or.
But the thing is, some of them have a flush already, right?
Yes, exactly.
So
sorry, go ahead.
No, I finished my thought. Go ahead.
No, I think, like, if he has like a jack, could be a hand like ace jack, king jack of spade. Like, those are mostly gonna be betting turn. Also, he bet pretty big. So, the thing is that, like, this is a really, like, this is not a great card, right? Because everything gets there. So he needs to be pretty cautious on the river. Also, there's like just slightly over a pot size bet left. So the pot is already huge. So.
Yeah, and then Ding Dang Dong really improves on this card. Jack 10 already got there, but, if he has a hand like ace jack of spades, that got there too. Maybe he has hands like ace 9 of spades too. Maybe he has hands like jack 9. That's all a little bit loose, but he could definitely have them. So let's see what happens. Again, heads up beat just doesn't care. So I wonder what he shows up with here. And gets a call. Wow, that's pretty sick. Okay, so let's break this one down. So we were right about the button. He did flat threes, and he was thinking, well, I'm super deep in position. Hitting a set is valuable, and he did hit a set, but somehow he got sucked out on. So I don't hate his pre-flop call. I don't hate his flop call. His turn call is good, obviously. On the river, it really, really sucks because this is such a scary run out, and heads up beat should just be very careful. So when he just ships in 250 big blinds, you got to think, well, does he really just want to ship that in when I can have all the good stuff too? So that looks pretty strong to me. So I think he can probably fold on the river. As for heads up beat, the squeeze is quite loose. King Jack is not the strongest hand. But what he's probably thinking as well, I have two big cards and, you know, against an open and three callers, well, if as long as Diener folds, I'm going to win the pot very often because everybody else has a weak hand. But he probably didn't realize that, you know, Ding Dang Dog was going to call quite light. And then, you know, the flop bet is very questionable. The turn bet is slightly better, but again, questionable. And on the river, well, he's probably thinking, got the nut straight, right? I want to get value from something like a set. I want to get value from two pair. I want to get value from, you know, just a jack. So kind of an overplay, but I don't absolutely hate the river shove. So, but I mean, if let's say he has a hand like aces, right? He's just completely screwed on this river. So he has to take that into account too, and not just think about his value range, but also think about the rest of his range. So what we do is at the end of the hand, we always rate the hand, and then, you know, you can also rate it. So I'll give Ding Dang Donk a 6 out of 10. I'll give Heads Up Beat a 4.5 out of 10. What do you think?
I think Ding Dang Donk. I mean, you gave him a 6. I would give him like something like a 5 or 4.5. I mean, the thing is that, like, what I wanted to add is that, you know, like, what is he bluffing with on the river? Like, everything gets there. Like, there are 250 big blinds deep. There's like over a pot size bet left on the river. Like, is he really? He's not betting aces. He's not betting kings. He would need to have a hand like ace king exactly with like a spade.
Or he would have to turn a hand like aces or kings into a bluff, which is I mean, there's a couple of players I think are capable of doing something like that. Actually, saw Moonistar pull a similar bluff yesterday, but this is very uncommon, right? For somebody to take a hand like kings or aces and the ship huge, blocking an out flush, hoping to get in position to fold something like a sad or, you know, or just a jack. So actually, you changed my mind. I agree with you. I'm going to give him a 5 now. A 6 is a little bit too much. Had I just gone check on the river, I would have given him a 7.5. So
and I think Heads Up Beat, I mean, his squeeze is pretty light, and then I like you mentioned, the turn barrel is decent, and then the river shove, I mean, I don't like. I mean, he's still winning against all the Jack X if he has two pairs of set, you know, like if he and also he bluffs the flush. So I mean, that's I think on the river I would definitely jam myself as well. So I would give him a 6 out of 10.
All right, fair enough. What do you guys think? We've got another min raise, this time by Zibeno. I've never seen that gentleman. And Weissenfish ends up flatting. Weissenfish is a long-time regular who's pretty aggressive. And Joe Black squeezes here to 14.5 big blinds, which is quite a large squeeze, but, you know, he's thinking, well, I'm very deep with Zibeno and don't want him to call in position and hit a set of threes on me. So he decides to squeeze large, and then he knows if that one gets through, then Weissenfish is very often going to fold, because if Weissenfish had a really good hand, he would almost always just be 3-betting.
Yes.
Call.
Yes, I mean, I'm not, like, you know, like the sizing is really big, you know, like if we use that sizing, I think we're just isolating his range a bit too much. And also, I mean, I kind of like just sizing down a bit personally, but yeah.
Yeah, so Zibeno's range is a little bit stronger than it would be if Joe made it, let's say, like 65, right? Because he went larger. Okay, so we go to the flop. I'm glad he didn't fold. It would be quite a boring hand. And this is a really good flop for Joe. I mean, 7-3-3 doesn't really hit Zibeno very well. Zibeno could, I guess, have a hand like threes for quads occasionally, right? I just said he makes it big to not make him flop a set of threes, but it could be quad threes. Sevens make some sense, but, you know, I'm looking to just get value here because Zibeno will often have hands like 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks. Maybe he'll have a hand as good as pocket queens or even kings sometimes being super deep. You can get value from hands like perhaps 5-6, 5-4, ace king, ace queen suited. Maybe he'll float hands like 10-9 suited. Did I miss one? Maybe hands like jack 10 suited, king queen suited. So I like this bet size. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's not a board where, I mean, his range is tight, right? It's like, so if he bets super small, Not a really big fan because, I mean, what is he gonna fold? Pretty much nothing. So I kind of like sizing up. I would personally maybe go for something like half pot, but I think this sizing is good. You can still get some value from worse, and it's a really good board for him. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if Joe ends up triple barreling here with aces on the blank run out, that's probably a good play, right? Because
Yes.
I mean, there's not many hands that he's behind against. So I mean, it's basically pocket sevens, which is 3 combinations maximum and 1 combination of threes. And I definitely don't think Zebeno always has threes. Sevens, I mean, he should have sometimes for sure. So if he goes like bet this size and like full pot bet on the on an 8th turn or something like that, and then on a queen river he goes full pot again, that's not really an overplay, right? It's not it's a little bit of a thin play, but that would be much better than playing a hand like aces in the previous hand.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so Zebeno calls. So Zebeno's thinking, well, I don't really have many good hands on this board, so I don't really want to do a lot of raising when my opponent clearly has the kings and aces advantage here. But this card is interesting. So the 7, it looks very scary, but it's not super scary. Zebeno can have hands like 6-7 and 7-8 sometimes, right? But not that often. So if you count like all the 8s through queens, let's say, versus the 7x and 3x, it's not that likely, right? So 7-6 suited would be 2 combinations, 7-8 suited would be 2 combinations, and he, I don't think he always has them. So it's not the best card for Joe Black, absolutely not, but it's also not the worst, right? It's not as if, let's say, in the last hand, both the flush and the straight got there, and he will have a lot of both of them, right? So it's an okay card.
Yeah, it's an okay card. Also, the 7, if we think about UTG's range, I mean, he doesn't have that many combos, like if it was like a 10 or a jack or something, I mean, it would be much more relevant, right? Now, he's going to have, like, we don't even know if he probably doesn't even have like a 7 suited. So, I mean, it's just a few combos. He has many pocket pairs. I don't think he's even folding like a pocket 6s or pocket 5s if he has that pre-flop on the flop. So yeah.
So I'm very curious as to what Joe Black's going to do here. And he bets over pot here. So what I like about the bet size is that he recognizes that the 7 is not a huge part of Zebeno's range. But the thing is, when you bet way over pot here, you're kind of isolating, the few good hands that he does have. So yeah, I would like to see him bet a little bit smaller to, in order to let him value bet hands like pocket queens more effectively.
I mean, does he really expect pocket 10s to call that if he has queens? I mean, like pocket 10 is just gonna be folding every time. I mean, if he would be like all the backdoor flush draw missed, right? So like if he actually bluffed, I mean,
well, he can find bluffing hands, right? He can just pick random overcards to bluff with. So
so I'll go ahead. Sorry.
No, but he can find random bluffs here. But I mean, as you said, he has to pick a bet size where a lot of the medium hands in Zebeno's range are in a tough spot, right? Whereas now you're kind of like, it's a very awkward spot for you as a bluff, and it's you're kind of giving Zebeno a bit of an easy way out.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. Like if he exploitatively just uses that sizing with bluffs, I think it like I don't expect Zebeno to be calling 10s or 9s there. So I think I don't like the sizing, to be honest. But like I mentioned, like it would be it's a decent turn to bluff as well because all the backdoor flush draw bricked, and but I would definitely pick like a regular sizing so that at least we can bet something like queens, kings, and still get calls by jacks and 10s. Now he's just gonna isolate himself versus a really strong hand.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, but I like the heart, and Zebeno now ends up shoving all in. I don't think we really need to shove here. The thing is, it's absolutely impossible. I mean, if Zebeno has 5-4 suited, then he just has more heart than anybody I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean,
That's
the
crazy.
thing is, if he has a 3, right, he has the best hand by far or the worst hand by far. And if he has a 7, he always has the best hand by far. So And it's impossible to add a bluffing range here. So I don't think we ever need to raise here.
No.
Joe Black's basically saying I've got a 3, I've got a 7, or maybe I've got a hand like Queens Plus that are trying to, get the absolute maximum, most possible value we can get. So yeah, against that range, I don't really see why Zebenya would have to raise. And then here, Joe, I mean, he bets huge, and then he still got raised. If I would not be calling here with less than a 7. Maybe you can call with a 3, but I don't think so, right? Because I mean, then Zebenya would have to be shoving with a 3 himself, which is very difficult, right? Because how does he call a 3 under the gun, especially when you somehow have one? If let's say you had ace 3 suited, so I think he could just end up calling with a 7 or better. Which he's not going to have many of, but he'll have it sometimes.
Also, like, if Joe Black is worried that he's not going to get, stacks in, like, I would prefer using, like, a regular sizing on the turn and then maybe split my range on the river instead than using this. Because here, I mean, like this is the problem here. Like, he's just going to isolate himself versus, like, the really top part of his range with that particular sizing.
Exactly. So, let's see what they have.
That's it. I'm pretty looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I mean, as expected, and neither person is bluffing here. I would say the more likely outcome is that Joe just folds the turn with an overpair with his air. But when Zebenya shoves here, I think he just has a hand like 6-7 or 7-8 every time. Maybe has a hand like ace-7 occasionally. I wouldn't be a fan of that preflop call, but that doesn't mean he doesn't make it. So, yeah, I think this is a little bit face-up. So, let's see.
I mean, this is exactly like what you're saying here is that, like, this bet size is so face-up. He's not thinking about his range. Like, he's saying, oh, I got the nuts here. I'm just going to bet big because we're 350 big blinds deep or whatever, and I just want to get stacks in. He's not thinking about, like, I have some other hands that I actually want to get value from worse, and he's just saying, oh, I have a full house. I'm just going to bet big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's see. I like the preflop squeeze sometimes. I like the bet size on the flop. The turn I don't like so much, but obviously we do call the shove. So I'll give Joe. I'll give him a 6 out of 10 again. I'm liberal with the 6s today. And Zebenya, I don't mind the preflop call. It's loose, but it's all right. I like the flop call. I just don't like the turn shove, right? Like, the thing is, if Joe Black has a hand like Jack 10 that's suited, you want him to hit a Jack or a 10 so he can potentially check call or bet again somehow. Or you want him to put in another bet if he has nothing. So I like the call preflop sometimes. I like the call on the flop. I don't like the turn shove. So I'll give Zebenya a 6 out of 10 as well.
Okay, I'll give Joe Black 6.5 and Zebenya, 6.5. I think, like, both of their mistakes is on the turn, but, like, once he bets big and then the other guy shove, it's pretty standard. After that, then pre-flop as well, I think it's fine.
Yeah, of course. So, nice hand. What do you guys think? What's up, Future Monka? What's up, Kitmo? Four-handed this time. Loves the min raise. And then Chirpy Box, who is definitely a legend. I assume we've both played him. He's a legend. He calls here. And we've got a very strange play. Alex cold calls, which, under the right circumstances is okay, but I generally don't recommend it. I can't remember the last time I cold called a 3-bet out of position.
He has like...
yeah.
like 16 big blinds.
What you're getting at is that he put in over half a stack right cold. So that's a mistake. If all of your 2K deep and you know that some guys have certain tendencies, I still wouldn't agree with it, but I don't hate it. But here, putting in over half your stack. This could mean anything. This could just be aces that he really wants both guys in there. It could just be 5-3 suited, right? Then he just wants to hit a 5 or something. It could be anything. So I'm not really sure what to think of this. It looks like a pretty strong hand, but who knows? It could be anything. And then Louis is in a bit of a weird spot because he's very deep with Chirpy Box, which, if he hits something good like a set, that's great, but he is very deep out of position. And, Alex is often just going to, when it goes to the flop, the pot's going to be almost 150, and then Alex is just often going to open shove for the last 42-40. And then, you're kind of in a sandwich. You're kind of, you're out of position to Chirpy Box deep, and you'll have to make the first move. It's kind of awkward. So I don't think he should just, call everything because of pot odds. What do you think?
I think, because, I kind of know Chirpy as well, he can be three betting pretty wide here, and so like I don't mind four betting a lot for value, and then it kind of puts me in a spot where you know, like we take Alex out, or you're just gonna shove his remaining 42, and then because I know Chirpy can flat call pretty wide versus the four bet. I've seen many instances of that.
Four do suited and all that type of stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I agree with that. So let's see what Louis does. Louis G. So he four bets, and it's actually a pretty sweet play to four bet here and kind of, you know, just get value from Alex and, you know, kick Chirpy Box out of the pot.
Yes.
So depending on what he has, I think this is a great play. Chirpy Box calls, and unsurprisingly, Alex calls. And we get King 5, and it's a bit awkward because there's a side pot, right? So the thing is, you're only fighting for the side pot. You're not fighting for the main pot.
Yep.
So it's a little bit awkward. The thing is, this bet size I really don't like, because when you bet full pot here, you're just allowing Chirpy Box to make an easy fold with hand like nines, right? So again, you see, guys, when you bet really large on dry boards, you're kind of allowing your opponent to fold his decent hands, right? Like nines, ace, queen of clubs, you know, 5, 6 suited, etc. You're just making him fold all the hands you're trying to get value from, and then you just isolate yourself against the nuts. So I think a much smaller bet would have been much better. What do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, like once we bet this, like you mentioned, and it happens quite often, or it happened also in the Joe Black hand. Once you bet really huge here, I mean, you just put him like in such an easy spot. You know, like he's not gonna keep. I mean, this guy might, you know, keep going with like 5, 6 suited and that type of stuff, but like in general, like you want to put his tough hands into a spot. I mean, he just has a super easy fold with ace jack of club, ace queen of club, if he ever has that, which is not great, you know.
Exactly. So you're kind of making it easy for Chirpy Box. Anyway, let's see what happens. So Chirpy says, "Fuck you. I'm just gonna go all in." I mean, pocket fives come to mind in Chirpy Box's shoes. You know, would he 3-bet pre-flop and call a 4-bet? Probably not, but who knows? But Chirpy Box could have a hand like Ace King, right? It's not like he wants to go absolutely insane with 1800 pre-flop with Ace King. So he might just be shoving here, hoping that Luigi doesn't fold a hand like Aces, or that he just has a weaker King. Again, I mean, I don't think we need to do much raising here, because Luigi's basically saying, I've got a King or better, maybe a hand like Aces sometimes, maybe a flush draw sometimes, and that's it. So I don't think we need to do a whole lot of raising here. But then again, Chirpy Box might be thinking, well, this player is a bit nutty, and I'm just going to play my hand in a vacuum. So I have no idea what they have. I didn't check beforehand, so I'm very interested. Let's see. Call.
Okay.
Okay, so Alex first off has Jack 9 off. That's obviously quite light. And Luigi has Ace King, so he kind of did the same thing that Joe Black did, where he's like, well, got the nuts, gonna bet big, right? And then Chirpy Box has Ace Queen of Spades, and I don't like his shove, to be honest. No. I think once yes, you're shoving for 1800 to when your opponent bet for 25, but so that's still like 4.5 times the bet. But I think when he pots that flop, he's just virtually never folding, and you're putting the money in, as you see with 30%. So I'm not a huge fan of this. I think you should just end up calling here, right? And then if let's say Luigi shoves the turn, you can end up folding. And yeah, it sucks to fold a nut flush in a 4-bet pot, but you just got to do it sometimes.
I mean, that's exactly what I think. I mean, in the sense that, like, if he shoves here, you would expect, first of all, like, people are, like, a lot of players are really faced up with their bet sizing. So, again, here, like, once he bombs the flop and he bets pot, like, he's mostly going to have aces or he's going to have a king, right? And especially when he has ace queen of spade, like, he basically block his only bluff that he would have playing that way. So he's even more likely to have a king or a really strong hand. So, I mean, he doesn't have any fold equity. So, I mean, he's just getting in the money with 30%. So I think calling flop and then having to fold turn is especially this deep, you know, like, I mean, they're pretty damn deep. So I would just call flop, and then hopefully I hit on the turn, and then if he bets again on the turn, I would just fold my hand. I think that's the better way to play it.
I agree. Let's see who wins this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, Oh, not even a sweat. All right, so okay, I'll give Alex a 0.2 out of 10.
0.2.
I'll give him a 9 out of 10 for heart. So Luigi, I like the open. I love the 4-bet. I don't love the pot size bet. I don't love the pot size bet, but obviously we do call the shove. So I'll give Luigi a 6 out of 10. I mean, the thing is, had he just bet small, it would have been a 10 out of 10, right? Because he would have done absolutely nothing wrong. And then Chirpy Box, I like the 3-bet. I like the call against the 4-bet. I hate the shove. I think you'll get a 4.5 out of 10.
Hey, I'm kind of surprised to see Chirpy have a really nice, like something that makes sense pre-flop, you know, because like I've seen so many stuff from him, can be pretty crazy. But I mean, Alex, I mean, I'm gonna be a bit more generous. I mean, 1 out of 10. 0.75, I think is fine.
All right.
And I mean, Louis Gate, I would say 6.5. I mean, I like the 4-bet. Also, you know, by just 4-betting pre-flop, I mean, we can just kick Chirpy when he has a really, really bad hand, and then we just isolate ourselves versus Alex, which is nice because of the dead money. So I would give him, I don't know, 6.5. And Chirpy, I would say about the same thing. I really don't like his shove on the turn, but everything else is fine. Also, like, you know, at least he has like the nut flush draw, so like, I mean, in his defense, like, I really don't like the shove on the turn, but like he also didn't do it with something like 6-7 of spade or something.
Yeah, on the flop, you mean? Yeah, but yeah,
yes, on the flop.
6-7 of heart, 6-7 of spades would be far worse, right? Because I mean, if Louis ever bet calls with a hand like ace queen of spades, then you're in even bigger trouble.
Yes.
So yeah, okay, it was a fun hand for sure. So
yeah, definitely.